We are watching in horror what's going on in Ukraine with Russian forces attacking civilian targets as well as military, with the goal of getting the Ukrainians to surrender, which is not happening. In the meantime, NATO countries, including the U.S., are doing what they can to help Ukraine, short of direct contact with the Russians, which means many sanctions, stopping the purchase of Russian oil for the country and others in place. Now, what more can be done? And what are the short and long-term consequences? Joining me to talk about it is Rice University political science professor Dr. Richard Stoll, a scholar of international conflict. Who better than Dr. Stoll to talk about this conversation? And we're also going to have an extended Newsmakers extra segment. Dr. Stoll, thank you for being here this morning. What we've seen happen so far, is there any way to get a sense of what's still to come based upon the political environment that's on the ground right now?
I think on the Ukrainian side, I think it's very clear they're going to keep fighting both their military and just ordinary people. And I can't see them abandoning that fight anytime soon, even if it doesn't go that well for them. On the Russian side, and I am not an expert on Putin, but I think it depends an awful lot on Putin. Does he decide that maybe nothing positive is coming out of this Russian attempt? And I think part of that involves, does he think he can stop doing this or slow it down, but at least in his own mind, claim that he got something out of it. There was something positive that came out of it.
How much more difficult does it make it for the U.S. and other countries that are trying to stop this when the person on the other end seems unhinged, like Vladimir Putin seems to be?
Well, I mean, one, of course, you have a pretty good sense of who you have to. When I say target, I don't mean try to kill, but like try to influence, you know. So that's, you know, one thing that's good. Now, I don't have any inside information on Putin. I assume that people in our intelligence community do, but there's been an awful lot of, well, you can tell he's unhinged, et cetera, et cetera. If we're going to make decisions based on his mental state, it has to be something that we feel reasonably confident about. And you or I just watching him on television or whatever, I don't think that tells us how he's really feeling. He has every incentive to be deceitful. So if we're going to, quote unquote, target Putin, we have to have some basis of information about what's going through his mind.
So when we look at what's going on here now, as a political scientist, how are you studying this, and what kind of options do you think the U.S. and NATO should have in place to try to counteract what's happening?
Well, I tend to see it as, you know, there's been a fair amount of work done on crisis escalation. Fortunately, most crises do not escalate to war. But, you know, what is it, you know, so there's been a fair amount of work, and I think we have to convince the Russians, Putin, but probably not exclusively Putin, that, no, one, NATO is serious about this. Two, the Ukrainians are incredibly serious about this. You are not going to get anything out of continuing to try to conquer them or part of their country. So let's think about how we can end this now or in the near future. Those are the kinds of messages that you want to send in a number of ways. And I think we are sending those mostly publicly. There may be some private things going on as well that you and I can't see. But, you know, I think we're doing a reasonable job. I do think the Russians, and I mean more than Putin, have to become convinced they're just not going to get anything out of this. Right. So they need to find an off-ramp.
Well, it's a fascinating topic. Unfortunately, people are suffering in Ukraine. We've got much more to talk about, and I'm glad you're going to stick around and do that. We're going to do that on our conversation continuing on Newsmakers Extra. You can find us on the Newsmakers page on click2houston.com. Thank you, Dr. Stoll. We'll continue our conversation in just a moment.